Morning, everybody. This has been an exciting start to our year after 22 and 23 when interest rates started increasing. And of course, we're still living with those higher interest rates today and probably will now for quite a while. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But, we have had more sales this year, which is good. Inventory is growing, which we'll see in detail here in a few minutes. But we have a great team of people. Again, I want to thank everybody who's been involved in putting this together today. Brian Williams is helping us with all the tech piece, and Sherry, thank you for what you do on the screen here. And, Vanessa and her marketing team with all the visuals that you'll see. We have a lot of great pictures, and, we don't probably need all the pictures, but it's fun to see where we all live. And this whole region in South Florida now has become a well-known picture for the entire world. People are all coming here in just greater and greater numbers. We were at the convention for the Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices convention in New Orleans just a few weeks ago. And I'm always amazed at all those receptions. They have 5,000 people there. And people are really queuing up to talk to all of us from the South Florida market. I mean, if anybody from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, everybody has a story or they have a question. They want to tell us about the restaurants they've heard about, the new hotels they're going to. So everybody has us on their bucket list. And I think if we could take a survey of bucket list across the world, we'd find that Miami's probably, in South Florida in general, is probably at the top of that list. But let's jump into our numbers. Let me get us on screen here in just a second. Hopefully everybody can see that on a full screen now. This is our Q1 2024 update. These numbers that you'll see are numbers that are going back to March 31st. And of course, now we have another month already in the can, so to speak, but it's too early to talk about the numbers there because all of our fellow realtors haven't had all their inputting finished yet. So we'll be talking about everything through March 31st of 24, looking back at this first 3 months of 24 compared to the first 3 months of 23. So with that, we'll just jump into it. This picture we've seen before, but this scene, we have so many scenes like this now from across, at least the Tri-County area of Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. But when you just look at this just says excitement all over it. And this is what the world is now viewing as our picture. And when they see this, they recognize it. There are a lot of skylines around the world that we all pick out a building or something that's unique about that city. But in our market, again, these three counties, it looks just like this everywhere we look. So this is the excitement that has helped us to grow this market. When this question here says, how did South Florida become the place to be? I think it's our international influence that started all this. When I look back to the mid 70s, even a little earlier in the late 60s, when so many people were coming from other places across the world, particularly South America, that is what has made us who we are. We are so unique with the culture of our ancestry, with the culture of our languages and the foods and the music and all the big pieces, all the total pieces that make up our market. So I can never look at these photos for long enough because this again is what is exciting for all of us to enjoy down here. Okay, this graph you've seen many times before too, but I want to call your attention to, we did this as a year-end graph and we're still using it, but we'll update it in July. But as you see in January of 2024 on the far right side, at that point, we were just almost at 7% at the end of January. Well, now we're comfortably at 7% mortgage rates. If you talked with our prosperity folks this morning and for conforming loans, we're now at a 7.5% rate, and for non-conforming loans, we're at a 7.6% rate. And of course, those rates are moving up and down every day, depending on what the Fed is doing, and then just what the marketplace is willing to spend. But this graph is something that's very helpful to show our sellers and buyers, but more our buyers, because the buyers can see that for most of our lives, for the last 50 years, that big chunk in the middle there, those blue bars, were comfortably up into the 7-8% range. And then those orange columns or bars on the left was when we were above 10% for a whole decade. So all of the 80s, the interest rates were more than 10%. And then they fell back to where most of America has enjoyed interest rates in that 7% range. And then And from January, from the 2000s, January of 09, 10, 11, 12, you see those green bars. Everything fell, below 5% during that period, all the way down to 3% and even a little bit under 3%. But you see those two bars on the right, last 2 years, 23 and 24, we're back up into, this was showing here at a 6.5% rate, but we are now at a 7.5% rate today. So if you run your finger back over to the left, you'll see that this is the highest rates we've had since 2001, 2002. Now, at the same time, I say these are the highest rates. That sounds like a lot. That's 20 years worth, 21, 22 years worth of years where we were below this. But I think that we're probably going to stay in this, hopefully we'll get back into the sixes, but certainly for the remainder of the year, I think we need to plan on somewhere in the 7% range. And that's not me just coming up with that. It's after hearing from a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people at the Fed. This is where we need to be to control inflation. And of course, these numbers are all based on controlling inflation. The reason that we raised the rates in early 22 was because our inflation was getting out of control. And of course, what created that was the fact that we dropped rates to such a low point in the 3% range, or in some cases like 0% the Fed were charging to try to make sure that COVID did not drag the country down. And we did a wonderful job with that. I think that as we look back, we'll all be pleased that this has worked out this way, because if not, we would be dealing with a lot of inflation today. This graph shows what we've seen many times before, but I think we need to really focus on this graph, because this is what our sellers need to see more than the buyers today. Because a year ago, back 3 years ago, in 21, you could still borrow money at 3%. So you could borrow $1 million in 2021 for $4,216 a month. 3% rate, $1 million. Payment was $4,216 a month. Well, you see, we had drawn some red boxes around kind of that midpoint where we thought we would probably get back to 6.5%. But still, 6.5% rate still means that you can only borrow about 2/3 of what you could borrow back in 2021. Now, if you, again, run your finger over to the 7.5% column, 7.5%, we're now talking about only being able to borrow about 60% of what you could have borrowed 3 years ago. So this is the reality of where we are today. The sellers, when we show them this graph, they quickly understand that our buyers today do not have the borrowing power that they had 3 years ago. So this is why there's going to be a little bit more competition on pricing going forward. And we're starting to see that. If you go into the MLS today, you will see many price reductions over just these last few days, and certainly a few weeks and months. So, we still have strong growth in our single family market, and we'll see in a minute here, the condo market is getting a lot of inventory, but a lot of that has to do with these interest rates. So again, this is a graph that hopefully we have these printed in a flyer format, just one page front and back that talks about this. So you really should acquaint yourself with everything on this graph, because this is what our buyers and sellers are going to be talking about for certainly the remainder of this year and on into the future. Okay, we talked about the tax factor over and over again. We all know that 8 states in the country have no tax. Florida and Texas are the real winners in this. When you look at where the population is growing, Texas is growing still at a rate of almost 1,300 people a day. Of course, it's a much larger state to start with. Florida is growing at a rate of 1,000 people a day. And as you look at that graph, you see that the colors, the ones colored in blue are the ones that are losing population. And so all that Northeast population, the California population, even Oregon, losing a few people every month, all of those people in the Northeast are just funneling into the South. And so that's why you see the green and the gold colors in the South quadrant of the Southeast quadrant of the United States. And we are the major beneficiary of that, but Georgia's growing at 318 people a day. South Carolina, North Carolina, also over 250, 350 people a day. Tennessee, 200 people a day. All those states that have the hash lines are the no tax states. So that obviously has had a big impact on those people as well. Positive impact. And the exchange rates, for our country, for our marketplace, we look at all these countries every month, And as you see, Argentina, I feel like I'm beating on Argentina every time we talk, but their inflation is still way out of control. 310% more expensive for them to exchange their currency for the US dollar today than it was a year ago. And I think that we will continue to see a similar graph to this. You do have a few places. Colombia is actually less expensive because their currency is improved against the dollar. And then Mexico, and as you see the other countries there. So we are, again, one of the few places in the world where we follow this like as closely as we do. You know, I grew up in Tennessee. We didn't talk a lot about exchange rates when I was growing up, but I have certainly learned to appreciate in the years I've been in South Florida now. Okay, this probably to me is the most important graph that we're going to look at ever because it shows the median price and where we've been and where we're going. This is for all single-family homes. This particular graph is only for Miami-Dade County. We have a lot of graphs to look at in more detail, so I don't have this exact graph for Broward and Palm Beach, but I wanted to point out before we look at this, over to the bottom left, you see a rectangular box that says highest median price prior to falling prices during the recession. This was the median price of a single-family home in Miami-Dade County in March of 07. So March of 07, from where we are today, was 17 years ago. So March of 07, the median price of a single-family home in Miami-Dade County was $373,000. And then by January of 11, so basically 4 years later, we had seen the median price of a home in Miami-Dade County drop to $150,000. Now, for all of you that were in our business at that time, at that point, or owned a home at that point, you probably remember this, but in case you didn't, single-family homes lost 60% of their value on a median price. Now, and you can see in this graph, this graph starts in 2008. So the fourth quarter of 2008, we just didn't want to go back to the beginning of time here with these graphs, but from 2008 to 2024, so we're looking at 15, 16 years of activity here. But you see on the left side of this graph, those columns, those bars were very, the inventory was way out of control. We had 24 months of inventory at this 08 period, but if you went back to 07, when I said the median price was 373, the inventory at that point had risen to 36 months for single-family homes. So we had 3 years of supply for single-family homes. You see that black line kind of toward the bottom there. It says 6 months inventory. That's the optimum inventory that our industry all agrees that this is where we would like to keep our inventory, 6 to 9 months of inventory for a balanced market. But when inventory gets above 6 months of inventory, you are going to have decreasing prices. It's just inevitable. It happens every time. So again, that's why I like this graph more than any other graph in our industry, because this is like taking your blood pressure. It tells you exactly what's going on, and now you know your blood pressure, so now you can search for, well, why is my blood pressure where it is? And so this is going to teach us that as we kind of go into these next slides. But as you look at this graph, so March of 07, median price was $373,000. By January 11, it had fallen to $150,000. And then we started a 13-year climb all the way back up to the recession, all the way back up to the pandemic. So from January 11, we hit a bottom of $150,000 as a median price for a single-family home in Dade County. By December of 19, it had risen to 380, which is basically back to where we started. So from 2007 to 2019, that's 12 years. It took us that long to get back to where we had lost value. But then COVID came in 2020, and that shaded bar shows the period when we started increasing interest rates. But we shot up to a median price today of $660,000. But now that seems to be kind of leveling off at that point. I mean, it's too early to say that, but I think we're seeing that in condos already. But again, this is a graph which hopefully you can just memorize, because this will help you tremendously in working with buyers and sellers, just to talk about the impact that this inventory and the impact that interest rates have had on us for these last many, many years. Okay, this one now is condominiums. I won't spend as much time here, but the bottom left corner there, the highest median price prior to the falling prices because of the recession. Median price had gotten up in March of 2007 for a condo in Miami-Dade County to $265,000. That fell. Condo condo values fell by 65%. It's hard to believe that we were selling condos for 35% of what people had paid just 4 years prior. But then by January of 2011, price had fallen to $92,000. By December of 19, it had risen to $245,000, and now the median price of a condominium in Miami-Dade County is $455,000. And again, you'll see in some of these graphs that we'll see in just a second that that's beginning to waffle a little bit, and you actually see it already happening on this graph. When you look down at the bottom at the inventory levels, below the 6-month line in 21, primarily in 21, is when our inventories fell to 2.5 to 3 months. And when that happened, prices just escalated even faster. You see that curve up above, almost going vertical. And then now our inventories got up to that 6-month level in 22 and 23. And now that we're in 24, we're going to continue going beyond that into areas where we know that it will begin to affect price. So if you have questions about this, jot them down. Sherry's going to be watching our chat here in a minute, and then we can go back and talk about these two graphs. Okay, this is, we've seen this before, but the Waldorf Astoria, our first 100-story building in South Florida. This is in downtown Miami, right across from Bayside. Really a clever design. I mean, these architects outdid themselves. Each one of those cubes looks like a kid's building block. Those are 10 stories, each one. So it's basically a square, and it's 10 stories tall, and you have 10 of those going up into the sky. So their building, I think, is pretty much sold out. They have 360 units there. It's going to be another iconic picture-taking moment for people when they come to Miami when that thing is finished. Okay, the Mandarin Oriental. I want to bring this up again, too, because we talked about this 3 months ago, but now it's they are full into their marketing. Our company has actually written some contracts already for units in this building. This is going to set a whole new standard of price. Brickell Key was started in 1980, basically the first building. They bought the land there in 1979, built the first building in 1980. The Mandarin was not built until 2000, and now they're tearing it down. So this building will only be 25 years old, 5-star hotel, and now it's going away to be replaced by a building twice this tall with more hotel rooms and then an adjoining 800-foot tower for new residential units. And this is where we've already begun selling some of these. The penthouse in that building, I think, is in the 40 million plus range. And they have 3 or 4 levels of penthouses. So we will continue to see prices in the Brickell area approaching prices on the beach on a per square foot basis. And the new bridge, I was stuck in traffic trying to get through this area the other night, and we're going to have to live with a lot of traffic trying to get this bridge finished, but it's not going to be finished until 2007. But again, one of those iconic spots to take pictures, there next to the Adrian Arts Center. So, these are the things that South Florida is going to be known for, already known for. But this is what's, again, this bridge, as simple as that sounds, is adding to the positive statements that people are hearing all over the world. Okay, there's another great shot of downtown. Okay, now here we go. Here are the numbers. If you look at Miami-Dade County, the way all these graphs are going to be designed here is Miami-Dade on the left, Broward in the center, Palm Beach on the right, and each one has 4 boxes. So the inventory for Miami-Dade County, inventory for single-family homes, rose 21% in the first 3 months over last year. This was after many months of falling inventory, years of falling inventory, and now we're starting to see that. Total sales in Miami-Dade County for single-family homes, however, still up, 1%. But then you look at Broward, their inventory has risen 38%. Sales fell 6% in the first 6 months, or first 3 months compared to the first 3 months of last year. Palm Beach County inventory is up 31%. Total sales have fallen about 5%. And then the supply numbers down at the bottom are still low. When you look in the bottom left corner of the Dade County graphs, we had a 26% increase in the number of months. Now we're talking about small percentage increases, but small months of increases, but larger percentages. 3.9 months of inventory a year ago, 4.9 months today. Again, we want this for the overall market to be 6 to 9 months. So as long as that stays there, we're going to continue to see median price going up. The median price of a single family home last 3 months against last year increased 16%. Broward County, 52% increase in the months of supply, but still only 4.4 months. Median price is now up to 610,000, a 10% increase in the median price. And in Palm Beach, 4.8 months of supply and a 12% increase in their median price to 670,000. You know, I will, we love prices to go up, but I will make a statement. You know, as a real estate broker, I would prefer not to see double-digit increases in median price year over year. If we can keep that into 5% range, you know, everybody will be happy with that, buyers and sellers. But when it gets to these levels, you know, something has to reset. And as we continue in these graphs, you'll see some of that resetting beginning to take place. Okay, the overall market, condominiums. This is the first reset. You saw back in single family, we had a 21% increase in Dade County last year, and the condos now have seen a 44% increase in the amount of inventory. Now, just to kind of put that in perspective, if you look at all the increase of inventory for single family homes, we had about 10,000, almost 10,000 more homes on the market now. We do have 10,000 more homes on the market today than we had a year ago. And then the same thing for condominiums. We had about 10,000 more condominiums on the market than we had a year ago. But when you look across at all three counties, Broward County had a 96% increase in condos last year, and Palm Beach County had a 71% increase. Total sales are starting to drop now in condominiums, 14% fewer sales in Dade County, 11% fewer sales in Broward County, and 15% fewer sales in Palm Beach County. And then if you look at the median prices, now they're falling back into that single digit range, which to me is much better than where we are at 16%. So the median price of a condo in Dade County increased 6% to 425,000. And again, I said earlier that the median price in March was 455,000. So these averages, or these numbers here, are all averages for the first quarter. So a lot of that gain came in the first quarter. But if you average the first quarter, the gain was, the average was $425,000 for the median price. And then in Broward County, the median price was $284,000, and in Palm Beach County, it was $325,000. So you see just from the bulk prices there that the median prices of condos in Dade County are moving much faster, much higher. But of course, this is creating, this is being created because we are now adding so many high-end luxury units to this mix. You know, we have many buildings that are pre-selling right now at starting prices of $2 and $3 million and more. And when we start getting up into these $10 million ranges, that certainly moves our median and average prices up higher and higher.
Ron, I
Yes.
was appreciating on the Broward slide.
Yes.
If you look at the dates, I think that may be just the number may be right, but the year for comparison.
23 to 22. Yes, that should be 24. Yeah,
Okay,
you're right.
we'll update them before we send them out to everybody. So.
Okay, thanks for finding this. Thanks for seeing that. Yeah, we've all looked at these numbers. Like, you know, it's there are a lot of numbers here, but yeah, you're right. That's a mistake. Okay, under $1 million market.
Ron, I'm sorry. Somebody was asking, this is only MLS and not pre-construction, correct?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. You know, very little of the new construction shows up in these numbers. Hardly any of the sales, but the inventory for some of the new product. But if a developer has 100 units for sale, they probably don't put more than 5 units in the MLS. So yes, there's a lot more inventory in the new construction. Now, the under $1 million market, which we know now represents only half of our inventory now in Dade County is under $1 million. So half is over $1 million, half is under $1 million. In Broward County, the number is a little bit different. 64% of the inventory is under $1 million. And in Palm Beach County, 53% of the inventory is under $1 million. So whoever thought we'd see a period where half of our inventory in Dade County is over $1 million, and the same in Broward and Palm Beach. Broward, though, it's only 36% is over $1 million, and in Palm Beach, it's 47% is over $1 million. So, or I'm sorry, the other way around, is under $1 million. So the numbers here, though, are showing now that sales in all three categories under $1 million are lower. And of course, I can attribute, I think, this to the fact that our interest rates have increased substantially from, you know, the low 3% 2.5 years ago to today, the 7.5% range. So I think interest rates are definitely showing up on this graph. But then you look down at the bottom left corner, 3.2 months of supply compared to a year ago at 2.4 months. We still are very low in single family inventory here. And the same thing in Broward and Palm Beach, where the inventory for under $1 million homes, single family homes, is still only in the 3.5 month range. Now, next is the condominiums. And again, you start to see the decreases in sales are now double digits. Now, again, go back, single family, 6% in Dade County, 11% in Broward County, reductions in sales. And then when you get to condominiums, reductions in sales are 16%, 12%, 17%. And look at how the inventories are increasing. Inventory in Miami-Dade condos are up 56% in the condos under $1 million. And the inventory Broward up 100% under $1 million.
Ron,
yes.
Sorry. Would you mind taking a moment and explaining the difference between inventory and supply, or when you're referring to them?
Sure. Well, the inventory, when I'm talking about inventory, I'm talking about, you know, gross numbers. So in the top left box, you have 7,090 condominiums on the market in Dade County this year at the end of March of 24 versus 4,538 at the end of March in 23. So year over year, we had a 56% increase in the raw number of units for sale. So we went from 4,500 to 7,000. And then when I'm talking about the supply, I'm talking about just how many months of inventory we have. So if we have 7,000 properties on the market and we're selling, let's just make it simple, if we're selling 1,000 a month, then we have 7 months of supply. So it's the supply numbers are taking a snapshot. So you're looking at the market to say, okay, if I'm selling, in that example I just gave, we're selling 1,000 units a month and we have 7,000 on the market, how many months would it take us to deplete that inventory? This is a measurement that's in our industry is used forever. I mean, anybody that analyzes real estate, you know, looks at these kind of numbers. And we know that from 6 to 9 months gives us a balanced market in the overall market. Once we go above 12 months for our market, may be different for other markets in the country, but for our market, we can handle 12 to 18 months once we get over $1 million, which is where, you know, a growing number of our sales are happening. So in this box, these 4 boxes to the left, we had 56% more units for sale at the end of March of 24 compared to March of 23, but we were selling 16% fewer, and the months of supply are 8.7 months versus 4.5 months that we had the year before. So
to really answer that, it's supply equates to months of inventory.
Yes.
To really kind of, and then someone else was inquiring about the median price indicated on these charts.
Yes.
If the listing prices or closed sale prices.
These are closed sale prices. Yeah, thanks for all these great questions. Yeah, and the median price, just again, I know, you know, we work with numbers all day long here, but, you know, median price simply means that half of the units are selling, in this case, in Dade County condominiums. Half are selling for more than $385,000, half are selling for less than $385,000, which is different than the averages. You don't hear us talk a lot about average prices because that gets skewed so quickly when we start dropping in $10 million properties. And, you know, when we didn't have $10 million properties, it worked fine. But, you know, now that we have this group of, a growing group of very expensive properties, it skews the averages. And you'll still see other parts of the country talking about average price, but in our market, the median price is more meaningful. Okay, but you see, again, the takeaway from this graph is that the inventories are up considerably in the under $1 million single family or under $1 million condominium market, up 56% in Dade, 100% in Broward, 72% in Palm Beach. Sales are down 16%. You know, you do not want these graphs going in opposite directions. I mean, it's pretty simple. If the inventory keeps growing and the sales keep dropping, the supply number is going to start to really get out of control, which is not out of control yet, but it's moving that direction. So this is why when people ask me, should they sell their condo today? I say absolutely, because this is only going to be, this this graph is only going to be heightened as we move forward because we're having more inventory completed now with new construction. A lot of those units will be coming back on the market. And we go through these condo cycles every 8 to 10 years because of the nature of how condos are built. If you want to build 300 homes, when we used to have a lot of land on the west sides of all of our counties, you could just go out and buy, 500 acres and then start selling homes 10 at a time. You would build 10 homes and you would sell those 10 and then you would build 10 more. And you never had this large overhang of inventory because it was balanced because you could do that. But in a condominium where you're building 300 units on 1 acre, you have to build them all at one time. And it takes, most of these buildings now are like a 7-year project. So from the time the developer realizes there's a need for more units, then they start designing and getting the approvals and then doing the construction and the pre-sales, all that. Most of these buildings is anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So I think that this is kind of, we've been here before. So when we see inventory growing this rapidly in this particular price range, under $1 million, but you'll see it in other ones too, and the sales are dropping, if I'm in that market and I have a condo to sell, I think now's the time to do it. Interest rates, are also an impact, but interest rates, I think, are probably going to stay here with us certainly through the rest of this year.
Ron, we had another question too. If 50% of homes in Miami-Dade County are over $1 million, does that also mean that the median price is $1 million?
No, and that's because we have more weighted at the bottom. And of course, the median price, I can go back here and show you real quick here. This is overall single family homes. You see that the inventory was up 21% and the median price here was 650,000. So, you would think, okay, well, if everything in this group is every price range from 100,000 to 10 million or 50 million, then what would the median be? Well, the median is still weighted more toward the lower end of that. It's not exactly 500,000 like you would think. Well, if you're looking at, everything in the market, this number should be over $1 million because half of the sales are over $1 million, but it's 650,000. And if you look at the numbers of how many are selling now, and again, we were talking about this particular graph we're on now, half of this inventory, 4,000 homes, and I'll go to the next graph here and show you, half of that, 2,000 homes, is under $1 million. So literally 51% of our inventory is now over $1 million. 49% is under $1 million. But then when you look at what is selling, and I don't have that easy for you to see on this graph, 76% of our sales are still under $1 million in Dade County. 82% of the sales in Broward County are under $1 million, but 64% are priced under $1 million or over $1 million. And in the Palm Beach, 53% of the sales are now closing over $1 million. So you have definitely a trend that's been moving toward a higher percentage of closed sales, in addition to the high percentage of homes for sale priced over $1 million. But well, let me keep going here. I'm going to get sidetracked. All right, so this is the over $1 million market. This is the over $1 million market. So we saw again where in the under $1 million condo market, big increases in inventory, sales were slumping, 16% down, 12% down, 17% down. And now this is the over $1 million market. So you see that this is where all the buyers are today, but you have many fewer sales in this price range. So the inventory is still up 17%. Total sales though are up 28%. Sales in Broward are up 24%. Sales in Palm Beach are up 19%. But then we've now hit in the over $1 million, 10.1 months of supply. We've shown that as red, but really in the over $1 million market, where that should not be red yet, even though it's 10.1 months. We feel comfortable with 12 to 18 months of supply in the over $1 million market. And then in the supply for single family in Broward, we're at 8.8 months, and in Palm Beach, 8.1 months. So Dade County is showing a few more months of supply, but I'm not really concerned about that because single family is truly a collector's item in all 3 counties. And while inventory is growing, so are our sales across all of these months of supply. At some point, we'll get up to those levels where it'll begin to have an impact on pricing. But as you see, the median price in all three of these areas are still up, but not by double digits anymore. I mean, 2%, 0.5%, 8%. Okay, so the over $1 million market in condos, again, you're seeing now the months of supply moving comfortably higher, or not comfortably, but in the supply market for Dade County, we're at 16.5 months, and Broward County 16.7 months, which also should be watched carefully. And then in the supply in Palm Beach, 11.8 months. Again, that if there's one metric that we can use before doing any in-depth investigation of what we believe the values to be, that one metric would be the months of supply. And when we're seeing months of supply in this over $1 million market in condominiums in all three counties going into the 16 months supply, then it's time to be cautious. It's time for condominium owners who really need to sell to realize that we probably are getting close to the top, if not already past the top of where those values will be. And again, I don't want to set off, panic in some people, and of course, some other certainly home condominium sellers and other realtors in our county would say, "Oh no, they're going to keep going." But these graphs do not point to that. Okay, market data by price segment. I'm going to kind of go quickly through this because we've pretty much done a lot of this discussion already. You're going to have access to all of this. We'll give you this whole slide presentation here, so you can show it to your buyers and sellers. But as you see in the under $500,000 market, inventory's down, but also sales are down in this under $500,000 market. Most all of these buyers need financing, and that's what's slowing people from making decisions to buy at this price range. But I think that there's still some great values in here. Our months of supply are still 1.8 months, 2.5 months, 2.4 months. Based on that, I think that buyers should go ahead and accept these rates that we have today. At 7.5% rates, those were the rates as you saw in those previous graphs for a couple of decades. So this is kind of what America grew up on, is those kind of rates. And frankly, I think personally that those 7% rates work better for the overall economy than the 3% mortgage rates, because at 3% mortgage rates, that means that the investors, most investors in this world, or certainly our country, they're still dependent on interest rates, to give them some interest return on their money, especially retirees. If a retiree has $1 million and that's all that they have to look forward to living the rest of their lives, then 5% of $1 million is $50,000 a year. Well, that's income that they can get today that they could not have gotten prior to 22 when their rates were so low. So probably the economy works better at the rates where we are today. I'm not concerned about the fact that I see these low numbers of sales, the sales dropping 39%, 29%, 32%. Part of that is because a lot of that price market for single family homes needed a lot of work. The homes are in need of repair, but people who are buying those, I think will be pleased as they look back, even 2 years from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. As long as these months of supply are where they are today, I think we're in safe territory. Okay, this is the under $500,000 market for condos. Again, you see the months of supply here still, getting, to that balance, 7.6 months. I said 6 to 9 months is kind of what we're looking for in the under $1 million market. But I think here is where we probably need to be cautious, because we have a lot of investors that own these condominiums. That's also positive, though, because most of the sales that we're having today in these lower price condos are users. And I think not only is that going to be helpful for the people buying to lock in their monthly cost of living, or monthly rental costs, or ownership cost, but I think that it's good for the buildings themselves, because when you have a higher percentage of owner occupants in a building, the buildings are generally taken care of better. And now we're also entering periods with our condominiums across the whole state of Florida where we're going to have to be uh, setting aside higher reserves than we've been setting aside for the last 40, 50 years. And so you're going to have, I think, higher quality buildings in all of these cases where we have higher owner occupants. But again, you see here that condominium sales are down 20%, 14%, 19% across the top there. Inventory is growing rapidly. But I think that now's the time not only for sellers to sell if they're investors, but it's also a good time for buyers to launch out into their first home purchase in many cases and become a property owner, because that's where they can enjoy the appreciation that will come over time. It may not be as dramatic appreciation as we're seeing in single family, but it will be there over time. But over these next, several months, probably even in the next year, we're going to continue seeing, some of the numbers that we're seeing on this graph right here. Okay, 500,000 to $1 million. I'm not going to go through all of these because it's really granular now. But you have all of these to talk with your buyers and sellers in these various price ranges about. And the fun thing about this is that it's already done for you. You just have to kind of open up the graph that fits what you're talking about. And then everybody likes to talk about these high-end numbers. So, over 10 million, you see where the inventory is growing in single-family homes right now. Today, we have 200, or at the end of March, we had 240 homes on the market priced over $10 million. In Dade County and Broward County, we only had 76. And in Palm Beach County, we had 221. Sales in Dade County up 12%. Sales in Palm Beach County, a lot of wealth moving to Palm Beach County, 186% increase. They went from 14 sales a year ago to 40 this year. Broward is very affordable compared to these other two counties. Broward, I think, is now looked at by everybody looking at the marketplace as an equal, that all three of these counties have really wonderful opportunities for a high quality of living. And so it's not like one is less expensive than the other necessarily anymore. I think they all offer various benefits that are attractive to different buyers. So, we have seen many buyers coming into our market from the Northeast, from California, or wherever. They say they want to live in one county and they end up at the opposite end. So you just never know. So hopefully all these graphs will help you be well versed in each one of these. Okay, condominiums over $10 million. Again, pretty astounding that Dade County has 137 condominiums now on the market today over $10 million. But we're up at 45 months of supply. Now, the median price has gone up because we were talking about a very small sample, only 9 sales to come up with that median price. So we had, a couple that were very high price, which brought the median to $14 million. But that's certainly not realistic of what the overall market is doing. But the months of supply is realistic, and this is the number that we need to focus on, that we have 137 units on the market, and we basically are only selling, whatever it is, 3 a month. So 3 a month into 137, you end up with a lot of months of supply. Okay, the rental market. Again, we've seen the number of properties coming back on the market for rent is increasing. And keep in mind that most of the rentals that we're seeing in the MLS are one-off condos where an owner has asked us to list their single-family home or their condo. We have built hundreds, thousands of new apartments now that are competing with our one owner condo owner that is asked us to try to rent, or ask us to list and rent their apartment. We saw some decreases in value there in the monthly rental amount over this last couple of years, but that seems to be leveling off now. But these graphs, you have to keep in mind, these graphs are a really limited supply of what's for rent and condominiums in particular, not so much single family that we're looking at this screen, but then this screen in condominiums. We've seen the inventory growing. We've also seen, higher number of rentals, but the median price in both of these, these condominiums at Dade and Broward are down. So, all right, market data by city and county. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you'll have all these various cities. look at all these pictures when you go through this stuff, because they're really some beautiful shots of the various communities. And there's an Aventura, and we all know Aventura for the beauty it has and for what it offers to, both permanent residents and seasonal residents. So again, same kind of graphs, looking at each one of these cities. Here's Bal Harbor. You just kind of go through Boca Raton, Brickell, all of these various markets. So I will stop there. Sherry, I'm going to kind of exit here.
Since we have everybody on this call, one of the things I wanted to share and announce, which we're going to be sending out, is the introduction of HomeServices Insurance. And Kiera Mandel is actually on our call today. And I'm very excited that this is something we're going to be rolling out and having her come to the different offices as far as, talking more about the opportunity to supply that is another service along with mortgage and title. And then I do see a question that just came in. What is the industry standard for months of supply for the rental market?
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, it's going to be also in that probably a little bit less, maybe probably 6 months, more than 6 to 9 months in the overall market.
Okay. Well, something also I appreciated probably almost around this time last week, if not, it was on Friday, you sent out a company-wide communication about the settlement. And I did get somebody asking me a question on that as far as, now that HomeServices is actually settled, how do you see that impacting agents' conversations, especially around value, commissions, and that sort of thing? I don't know if you want to try to touch that while we've got everybody.
Well, there are a lot of moving parts to that, and
right?
A lot of people were surprised to hear that we had settled. But one of the driving factors in that was that the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear the appeal that we made. We were the only company that appealed to the Supreme Court, but they didn't want to talk about it. So that's the way our government works and the way the system works, and it's a great system. And so we'd have to honor that and move forward. So, we were faced with a $5.4 billion judgment, which just seems ridiculous. I don't think even the plaintiff's attorneys ever dreamed they would see that. But after our competitors had mostly decided to settle, and of course NAR settled for $418 million, we all know that there's no price fixing in our business. But when you get into a courtroom, I guess you have 8 people who are just regular citizens that are saying, okay, well, we think the realtors are guilty, and that these people should be given billions of dollars. And that's the best system in the world, but it certainly was not something we were pleased with. But we just have to keep going. I mean, as I've told many of you lately, buyers and sellers are still here. They need our help, and they need our help now probably more than ever, because it's going to be a little different. In July, the National Association of Realtors has made commitments that they are going to change a lot of our MLS policies. And one of those big ones is that we're no longer going to be able to print in the MLS what commissions the seller might offer to the buyer's broker. So if you're a weekend realtor, it's going to be tough for you, because you now are being basically kind of shut out of the information. So if our sellers, and we are still encouraging our sellers to offer a cooperating commission, when you think about where the money at the closing table comes from, it's the buyer that's bringing all the cash to the table. So how it shows up in a closing statement is kind of irrelevant, because we're just trying to reach the best value for both buyer and seller. So I anticipate that we will continue pretty much like we've been doing, but we will not be able to offer that showing in the MLS, even though we will be able to offer it as a company. And so we'll have more conversation now with cooperating brokers calling us to say, I want to show your property on Saturday, and oh, by the way, are you offering a commission? And in some cases, we may have some buyers that don't, or some sellers that don't want to do that. We are still very much encouraging our sellers to do that, because if you just think how mentally, or how that just works with a buyer, if you say, okay, the price is $1 million, but we're no longer paying a 3% commission, if that was what we were paying before. So the buyer and the buyer's broker is going to make the assumption that, well, they're really not asking $1 million. They're asking 970,000 now because they're not offering to pay a referral fee, or not a referral fee, but a commission to the buyer's agent. So I think we're going to have a lot of discussion about it. You know, there are going to be some sellers today who understand, most sellers, I think, still understand that it's going to be hard to enlist help to sell their property if we're not offering to pay people that this is what they do for a living. So I think that will continue, but I think that there will be some cases where the buyers will seek us out as the one who has the listing. So we've always been known as a listing company. I mean, you know, there are a whole lot more companies that don't list than ones that do. And I think that the companies that have the listings are going to be the ones that get the phone calls from the buyers saying, you know, I've been reading all these articles and I realize now that that person's picture on Zillow is not the listing agent. And it's somebody who's paid for a zip code. And, you know, incidentally, you know, homes.com has now entered the picture to be a major competitor to Zillow, and they have a fine system, but we really don't need it because we already have our own MLS system and we know what values are. But it's another avenue for the buyer to find out about our properties. So I certainly don't think that any of us probably need to pay Zillow or homes.com for more marketing because we have our own marketing, and you know, and we sell our listings regardless. And but I think that will continue to be a new topic that our buyers are now going to be more engaged in discussing, where you have buyers that now will be seeking us out again, and we're already seeing it happen, you know, seeking us out because we have the listing. So I know there are a lot of unanswered questions, but
yes, and I was going to say one of the ones that has surfaced in a few ways is about any kind of new forms reflecting these commission changes, contracts, buyer representation, listing agreements, and I know we're still kind of waiting on some stuff. And
well, the whole industry's waiting, and you know, I know many of you have already started doing some online pieces and looking at buyer brokerage, and yes, we're going to be doing all the above. And I think that I know over the next you know, 30, 60 days, we're going to have a lot of new, and I wouldn't say a whole lot of new, but I mean new documents that we can use with buyers who want to hire us to be their exclusive agent. I don't think that's going to be the majority of buyers in the marketplace, but I do think that we will all kind of find the common ground as people, you know, tiptoe into this. And I think that, like changes in the past, and we've had other, you know, changes in agreements over the years, you know, Aniela obviously has been our point person to handle a lot of these changes, and we've already, you know, some of that's already on, you know, already posted where we could pull it up.
I was going to say there's a great piece which we did send out and can be found on my EWM under legal, that's called Let's Talk Facts, that talks about a lot of what we've been seeing going on in a fashion that makes it very conversational. So we can resend that out when we are also sending your presentation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you have those printed in the offices too. So I mean, it's a few pages, but you know, a lot of it's, you know, just kind of, you know, kind of common sense about what we're doing, but it also helps our buyers and sellers to see what we're doing.
And of course, we're you know, waiting on Florida realtors, you know, on changing some of these things. And as soon as we get all of that, we will be doing, I know Aniela has even commented that we will be doing changing, we will be changing or training, I should say, and changing the forms as well. But there already are some pieces, and somebody talked about like all the talking points. That was something else that we had distributed, but if it's not in the legal portal, we'll put it in there too, just talking about your value as a realtor. So somebody was commenting that it looks like we're moving into the same business model as commercial. So is it
probably won't get to, you know, commercial is still very much, you know, independent brokers, you know, keeping their information and sharing sometimes and not sharing sometimes. I mean, commercial is definitely more challenging for for the brokers to work with each other. But it does, you know, the people in the commercial field certainly know that they they have great cooperating relationships with a lot of our, you know, fellow realtors out there. But I don't see us going back to that system necessarily. You know, New York had that for years, where if you want to see 5 different units listed with 5 brokers, you had to call 5 different brokers. And I don't think we'll be getting to that, because, you know, we still want to cooperate with each other. It's just a matter of how we handle the information. You know, the Realtor Association has decided that we're not going to any longer provide this information. So you can't go into a listing and see that there are, you know, 20 listings in this building, and, you know, 16 of them are paying a 3% cooperating commission, and the other 4 are paying 2% or whatever they're offering. And then, of course, some can offer nothing. But I think that, you know, that will go away from the MLS, but we will still be offering that, and, you know, advising our sellers that this is how we can cast a wider net for more people to show their property if we offer to pay people to bring us their buyers. And I don't think that's anything like price fixing. It's just kind of, again, common sense that we're not, you know, we can't just give away hours every day to show property and not be paid for it. So we have to be careful, you know, how we distribute the information. But we're going to follow certainly all these guidelines that are now being written.
Thanks, Ron. I think you did a nice job kind of touching on all of that. I know, as we've all been experiencing, every day there seems to be something new in the headlines. So trying to stay on top of it. And that's where, again, as things evolve and change and impact how we do things day to day, we'll be definitely reaching back out and giving those informational pieces, as well as any updates to the forms that we use. Thank you again. I know it takes a lot of time to prep on all of this stuff. And like I said, we are recording today, so we'll be sending this back out, as well as Ron's presentation and a couple of these other pieces that we talked about as well. So thanks, everyone, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. You make it much easier for me to do this. And thank each one of you. I mean, as I say all the time, Sherry and I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for for all of you out there working so hard. And of course, we learn about the market from you too, because you're on the street face to face with buyers and sellers, and so that's very helpful. So when you see changes that you feel are changes in your market, certainly let us know. But also, just, you know, to thank you in general. I mean, I look back at our 60 years of history now that we've all been reminiscing about over these last few months, and we will continue for the rest of this year as our 60th year. You know, we're very proud of what our founders started and what we've been privileged to, you know, to continue working under for all these years. And the reputation that they left us is certainly continuing in the shoes of each one of you. And thank you, because your reputation is our reputation and ours is yours. So we are very proud of where we work and who we work with. And I couldn't say enough nice things about all the people that we get to work with each day. So thanks a bunch, and we'll just keep selling.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.